Hello everybody, this is Spritemare back at it again with another Advanced Wars by Web replay analysis. Last time that we had one of these, we had a good clean game of Advanced Wars by Web. I assure you, this is not a good clean Advanced Wars by Web game here. We've got cheating, we've got stealing, and we've got gambling. So, this is a fog game that was played on Far-East El Dorado, and it was in New Tier 2. New Tier 2 has basically the usual Tier 2 suspects. You've also got Javier and you've got Von Holt for some higher income maps. And I like the tier, honestly. I don't like the Dittos, but I do like the tier when it's anybody but a Ditto. And in this case, I've opted for Von Bolt. I enjoyed doing a little bit of the more aggressive side of the matchup, and my opponent, Husky91NJ, has chosen Olaf. Now, at the time of this game being played, Husky was number 2, I believe, on the active fog ladder. And speaking of the active fog ladder, shout outs to Hapaholi for helping me out, basically dissecting some of the game after it finished and giving some insight onto how to play this map a little bit more in depth. Now, to the folks who are listening to, multiple hour-long Advanced Wars by Web replay analyses, you may see Fog, Far-East El Dorado, and think, hey, that seems a little bit familiar. Didn't someone do a replay analysis on this map? And you would be absolutely correct. Lagatua, who is a very good Fog player with a YouTube channel, has already done a replay on this map. Now, the thing is, this is going to go a little bit into how metas develop and what happens when builds get stolen. Because without further ado, well, slightly further ado as I set this up, I'm going to be blatantly stealing an Alagatua build for this. Now, there are pros and cons to blatantly stealing some of these builds. For one, you're probably not going to be doing too bad at the start. I mean, it just makes sense. If you have somebody who knows what they're doing, crafting up a build, they're going to be perfectly fine. And we're going to just quick turn off the opponent's vision there, because this is going to be completely blind. It's very difficult to lose the game if you're stealing a build based off of just the opening. Now, the downside of stealing somebody's build is that if it is a well-known build, let's say somebody uploads a YouTube video with a couple thousand views on it, on a map, people are going to know what the build does. So we're going for an APC build. This is pretty popular on this map, just doing APC in general. And the dynamics of it are very simple. This APC gives a lot of efficiency to the infantry, and it'll be kind of self-evident just slingshotting this guy here and getting him somewhere useful to improve the capture phase. And my opponent does their turn. Nothing that we see here. Just going out. You'll notice we are kind of speeding through this. I'm just yoinking. Oh, there's the first tank. And just grabbing my properties. Double recon, get some vision. And yeah, move up my recon here. This is all well and good. I have stolen, move for move, Alagatua's build. We are perfectly fine here. But I move my recon here. And I see disaster, because that's already capped, and that is getting capped. I have no way of stopping it. Now, on my end, I'm probably going to be getting these two contested properties. But what I have done is I have more or less stolen a build and not fully recognized what makes it good or bad for a certain circumstance. Because if you remember the very brief description of the tier that I mentioned of Von Bolt versus Olaf, now there's some dynamics that come into play there. Von Bolt needs to basically bully Olaf and get an advantage early on, or else he loses, because Olaf's Winter Fury will just keep grinding him down, and it's going to be very, very problematic. The contested properties in this map are here, here, and kind of here. On this side, and this one as well. On this side, that's these. Now, the goal as Von Bolt is to get about a 4K income rate. That's roughly what you need to be comfortable playing the longer game against Olaf. And it'll help you weather some of the Winter's Furies, give you some cash to heal up. And the problem is, I have been a greedy, greedy boy, and I have sent my APC here, and my opponent has sent an APC onto this side, and we've basically inadvertently handshaked each of these properties. I don't like that as Von Bolt. That is not good for Von Bolt, because if we just handshake all the contested properties, Olaf sits back and just kind of enjoys his time. Now, without getting too into spoilers, my opponent definitely made a counter build for the popular Lagetua build that was floating around, and did some great prep and research on making sure that he would have the advantage off the bat, or they would have the advantage off the bat. And you know what? That's very awkward. So my dreams of denying these properties, gone. So now I'm looking to, see if I can get the corners, more or less. And one additional thing as well. So what I would have done differently if I were not copying a build pretty much like a bot. You go all the way back early on. If you want to be super aggressive as Von Bolt, you can build a recon out of this base really early. I went for just economy, but realistically speaking, I should know we should be bashing things. We can get these properties later. Sending out an early recon to try to mess with things would be absolutely appreciated, but it is not what I did. Despite, I'll have you know, losing to a base skip instant recon in Quack Cup 6, round 1, because I went for a very silly, very greedy, it was a Hachi exclusive build, and my opponent base skip reconned and basically ruined my entire day and killed me on the spot. But we do not live in the world where I have this recon out, like 3 extra turns to bully the infantry, deny these properties, have a good time. We live in the world where I mindlessly copied a build and decided to just kind of go, okay, we'll send out the pretty much the exact same thing. Now, my opponent gets away with that property, starts capturing this property, and I'm like, no, I can't let that happen. And nothing else much happens this turn. Just kind of camping out. So, I want my 4K. If I can't have my 4K, I am a very, very sad boy. So, my first instinct is attack this here. I do not want that capturing. That would be extremely unfortunate. And additionally, every turn that this is captured is just another 1,000. And that's going to go straight into Olaf's charge bar if I'm brawling him right. So that would not be ideal. However, I am fairly certain, because this APC build is basically identical to what I have going on over here, that there's a tank waiting in the wings. So any attack with a recon is going to get smacked by a tank from this silo, or right here. And this poses a little bit of an issue, because this is theoretically, this area is my weak side. The weak side, strong side is a little bit fungible on this map, but that's how it is by default. So, additionally, this square is very good terrain. These squares are not very good terrain. If I am starting a fight, and my opponent is starting with a tank here, even as Von Bolt, that's an awkward fight. And it's a key thing that Von Bolt would like to fight early, yes, because he's the more aggressive CO. He wants to use those stats before the Winter's Fury comes online. But he wants to win the fights, because it's kind of a problem if he fights early and loses. And it's entirely possible to fight early and lose. Now, over on this side, I am able to grab these properties. I see this infantry, I'm like, oh no. Oh, no. We are not allowing that. First, I take this shot over here, get the 4, which is really nice, because that delays it a little bit longer. Send up my units. Get my vision. I should have gotten my vision earlier. This is just a sequencing thing. You should pretty much always send out whatever is going to give you more intel and fog first. And, you know, I don't see too much. I just see some infantry right now, but more intel means better decisions. And it's better off to just make your decisions with more intel. And then I send this APC to block, because I'm like, I want this property. I want my income. I want my income lead. And I build copter here. One thing that Holly recommended after the game is each side should have 1 artillery and 1 copter, because these corners are very dominated by these river tiles. The rivers kind of limit the avenues of attack. And copters and artillery are really good at playing around that, especially if you can get a artillery into this forest. That basically shuts down this area, which is really nice. There isn't entirely an analog for that on this side, but just having 1 artillery in the vicinity will open up a lot of opportunity. So, as predicted, my opponent's tank comes on in, smacks my recon. I am sad about that, but I don't want Olaf to have income. I see something interesting. This infantry runs down there. This infantry shows up, and this infantry is very telling because we have 97 fuel on this infantry. Oh wait, no, that's not the red herring infantry. That's my bad. Ignore what I said there. That's a spoiler. So my opponent continues the captures up here. And has the APC there. I already knew that there was an APC, so that's no surprise there. So, I'm Von Bolt. I want to brawl. I want to use my awesome stats, and I want to start beating Olaf into the ground before the Winter's Fury comes online. So, naturally speaking, I attack the tank. 5/8's alright, you know, but we take those. This is a whoopsie daisies. This is not a good move, because this tank all of a sudden cannot get all the way back around here to reinforce this tank. That's just not good, not a good engagement. Because even though I am really crippling this infantry, there's a lot more infantry here, so infantry damage isn't as important. And more than that, it's just a very foolish move, because if there is another tank that can show up here, this tank is getting sacked, and I'm going to be very unhappy. And it's very, very trivially easy to block this tank off. So kind of just an error, unforced error there, and that's not something you can really afford as Von Bolt versus Olaf, because Von Bolt doesn't really have a catch-up mechanic. Once Winter's Fury starts coming online, it comes online and it keeps hitting, and there isn't really any way to get out of that situation with it. Like I need to win early, or else I'm going to be in big trouble. And I have just exposed myself to a situation where I very realistically might not be winning early. I might be losing early. Over here, though, this corner's looking good. I've got 2k income lead at least, so that's nice. I want 4k, but 2k, you know, let's start. And then this recon sees a T-copter. So what my opponent has done is, knowing that I would likely steal the AWBW build and not have vision for a little while, They have built APC T-Copter in my face, and I am playing Von Bolt. Which is an extremely bold call, because Von Bolt typically will be incentivized to do an aggro opening, sending out the recons, all that and doing some damage to Olaf early on, but the AWBW build that exists around does not do that, and my opponent correctly surmised that I would be a little mischievous fellow with my hand in the cookie jar and stealing that build. And this is why you think for yourself, folks, when you're building builds, because there's the possibility that you run into a hard counter build that exists just to, well, not just to kill, but specifically with whatever you're stealing in mind. Now, it should be noted, Fog has a little bit of rock, paper, scissors in the openings. It's not super hard rock, paper, scissors. You can still win off of getting a bad pull of the RPS. But nonetheless, there is no build that will 100% beat every option. And if there were, the map is bad. Quite simple. So, that is one downside of builds getting popular, is it's easier to guess that people will be using them, and then you can just build the counter. If you have it set. It's much easier to say, oh, just build the counter build, as opposed to doing it. There is a lot of skill involved in crafting a counter build like this, and it is pretty impressive. But because of the dynamics of what's going on here, my opponent is largely seeding this side for now, and is looking to kind of slow push that, and is kind of dumping a lot up here. And again, if I am only able to get away from this with 2k income before Winter's Fury comes online, I'm going to be hurting. So, kills my recon. Bullies my tank. Sends the infantry up to there, and blocks my tank. So, this has gone poorly, to say the least. I've gotten a little bit of damage on infantry, but I'm losing the tank war. I've lost a recon. It's not what Von Bolt wants to see in the opening. In fact, if we open the stats, I am solidly down here by 6k. And that's not good. Especially because I don't really have a follow-up counterattack here. I can bully some infantry down on the bottom right corner. But this stupid APC is in my way. And the APC presents a dilemma, because I can shoot the APC to make it a bad blocker. But that's, 5,000-ish charge going straight into Olaf's charge bar, which is his win button. And, that's not ideal for me, because the faster that bar fills up, the shorter my window of opportunity to make something happen before Winter's Fury hits, the shorter that window becomes. So, first things first, my artillery gets into position. Part of this is I want to kill any artillery that shows up in this woods. I'll know if it shows up in this woods because I have the recon on this front, so I'll have very good vision. And I really do not want to deal with an artillery showing up there, because that would ruin my day if I'm not prepared. Running away the APC. Just taking a pot shot at an infantry. And killing off the infantry, because I've got this artillery supporting. So if something shows up to brawl, that's fine. And one thing that is particularly relevant for Von Bolt is, while you want to defense stack, zero-star terrain actually has some benefits for him. But going on to this side, so this is awkward, because I can only really take one shot with all these units, and it's just this tank on the APC, which is kind of worthless. I'm capturing over here just to try to get something out of the Von Bolt defense, and I'm capturing over here as well just to see if I can get some sort of counterplate going. But it's a little ugly. But what I do is I build a very early Neo tank, day 12. Reason being, I need to wall break this, and I need some immense swing right now to be able to make things happen up north. I've got one base. I don't want to invest too heavily into copters because air units against Olaf are going to eventually just get ground down by Winter's Fury. Plus, they don't benefit as much from the Von Bolt 1010. They still die to anti-air all the same, and they still lose if they get first struck by another copter. So, ground tech units are kind of my friend here, because a Von Bolt Neotank is a lot more durable than, say, more Von Bolt battlecopters, because I can heal up a Von Bolt Neotank when the inevitable Winter's Fury comes, and it can clear pretty much anything here, which is really nice. And I'm feeling pretty good on this bottom right side. So that's kind of the silver lining of my position. So, kills my infantry. Kills my other infantry. Von Bolt, that's actually a roll, but about a 50-50. Can't complain. That AWC is going back to go ferry a lot more infantry and basically earn itself a Best Buy gift card because it has given Olaf almost a full bar of charge and is now going to go do the exact same things that a full HP APC would have done. In retrospect, I think I should have just shot it with an infantry. And a tank shows up. But no more tanks show up there. And I started to say it, but one benefit of Von Bolt, this engagement happens again, is that, and there's an artillery, is that when tanks or equal units shoot at each other on 0-star terrain, Von Bolt actually has a pretty notable advantage most of the time. I mean, beyond just the normal breakpoints, beyond just normally having 10-10, because the most likely outcome of, say, this, like a tank attacking from 0-star terrain onto a full HP Von Bolt tank on 0-star terrain is this 5-7, and then the most likely outcome there is that I'm able to send my Von Bolt tank in and clear that tank. Now, normally you just want a defense stack, but this is kind of a huge threshold to hit. It doesn't hit all the time. This is still a roll, but it's very common. It's very favored for the Von Bolt, and it makes fighting into Von Bolt on 0-star versus 0-star terrain with most CIOs kind of a losing proposition, because it gets bogged down in these fights where Von Bolt is basically just going to be generating an extra half tank or an extra half infantry every time that engagement occurs, which is really good value. And you see it again here with the infantry. 5-7, full HP infantry comes on in, kills. If, say, another infantry were to come on in, it would be 5-7, another full HP infantry could come over, kill. And I'm just gaining unit count, basically. Which is really nice. That's an advantage of Von Bolt. And this artillery pounces, kills that infantry. I'm going to send my APC back, get some more dudes up to the front. And I just want to brawl this, because Winter's Fury is about to come online. I am not going to be able to interrupt this, so I'm looking at potentially a 1k income, which would be pretty disastrous. If I can't get this property, my opponent gets this, I mean, 2k is already not what I want before Winter's Fury. Especially with the brawls not going particularly well in my favor. But these tank kills are very nice. There's no two ways about that. And I'm able to kill some infantry and just barely delay this cap. Got my dudes back here. The Neo is coming here to get online momentarily. I'm also funneling my infantry up north, because I've already got all the contested properties on this side. So I want to be able to put a legible threat on these properties and these properties. And for that, I need infantry. And if I'm going to be fighting up north, I can't go too heavy into air because Olaf's going to bully it with Winter's Fury. And I can only build one vehicle per turn from this base. And I want to be building vehicles in order to project power north. But if I'm building vehicles, I'm not building infantry, and I'm going to get very infantry starved. I think a T-Copter would have actually been a good build for me here. Largely to alleviate that issue. And we're just building quad vehicles. Beautiful. Get some fighting strength on the board. I'm building Copter here. Even though I don't want to go too heavy into Copters, I still do want a Copter on each side. It just opens up some options. So tank comes in. This is the outside. Now, granted, I do not have another normal tank ready to continue this engagement, but it should be noted that that 5-7 on Von Bolt unit comes on in to kill. That's not all the time. Sometimes it can be this 4-8. It's an outside roll, but it can happen. Now, fortunately, I have a Neo tank here instead of a normal tank that can basically counter that fight without having to worry about the roll. And there's the 8-4 again, actually. My opponent gets fairly lucky on that as well. But it is worth noting that Von Bolt is not infallible on 0-star terrain. So, goes for a little bit of a ambitious cap there. That suggests that my opponent feels pretty strong on this side, actually. So I'm hoping then that I can just kind of lead the infantry for a moment, capture these two properties, and refocus some forces down to the bottom right in attempts to get my 4K. I probably won't be able to, though, before Winter's Fury, because the brawling hasn't been as good as it really could have been for me. That early tank shot, losing the early recon, and not getting the extent of an income lead that I would really like are hurting me. And that's just how it is. In fact, if we go open up the stats, my opponent has more kills than deaths as Olaf before Winter's Fury is up, which is not ideal. And artillery slinks off here. Infantry slinks off here. Another infantry shows up. So, in retrospect, I think this tank was maybe a little bit ambitious, because it is going to just get eaten. I eat it with these, because I don't want to reveal the Neo. I'd much rather the Neo be a surprise. And kill that there. Okay, sweet, we've got an anti. So, I want to hit this, I want to hit that. I want to cap up here. Now, there's a very strong chance that Olaf gets Winter's Fury next turn. I don't think I can particularly stop it if he's dedicated. The thing is, it is a roll, and I believe it is an unfavorable roll. I can just bring up the calc. For Olaf or any base firepower CO to kill a Von Bolt 8 HP infantry on a 0-star terrain during power. And in fact, I will just bring up the numbers here because it is a little bit relevant. We've got on power. So, Von Bolt has so it's a 74 to 82% roll for a tank to clear an infantry that's 8 HP on 0-star terrain for Von Bolt during power. So that's a 75% chance for the roll to fail, approximately. So, it's a little bit risky to have this guy here, but, you know, it could be worse. Hopefully my opponent doesn't get that roll. That would be very bad for me, because then I lose my copter on the front, and it gets very awkward, but, you know, what are the odds? What are the odds, you know? That's nice, though. I get that roll. And I send in my recon, because I want to know what's going on, and I want to do my damage before Winter Fury comes online. And intelligence goldmine. I see this Neo tank. That's good to know about before it starts killing expensive units. So, I decide here, I'm just going to go in. I'm just going to see if I can kill as much stuff as possible before Winter's Fury and cripple this force before the Neo comes in. Meanwhile, I'm sending my Neo over here to heal. Combining this, combining units against Olaf gives Winter's Fury fewer targets. And it's hard to repair units against Olaf if they're like low health. Because Winter's Fury just will take a large proportionate chunk off of them, and it takes a while for them to get to full health. So they're just going to be sitting around for multiple Winter's Furies, and it gets a little bit ugly, and it's going to rack up your repair bill really fast. So I'd rather have one fairly high health unit than two really low health units. Just positioning pretty defensively here because I'm anticipating Winter's Fury, potential big push with that. Sending this guy here. This recon is dead, but I don't want the tank to die. And just chipping some infantry here. I don't want anything too untoward happening during Winter's Fury. And I build my counter Neo here. And for good measure, I mean, the tank is going to have options anyway, so I might as well bully some more infantry. But tank comes in, eats my tank. Before the Winter's Fury, you know, it's looking alright now. Now, granted, I did a little bit of a all-in play, and I'm not at the income thresholds that I would really like to be at. But, you know, it's pretty respectable damage. But it's about to become not great, because this is what Olaf is all about. I don't see it. I believe it should account for damage at the end of the turn. But all my stuff is about to get absolutely brutalized, because Winter's Fury is a very good power. Tank goes in and, of course, gets the roll. Of course. That's painful, because that opens up the anti-air to shoot the copter. And we're in Winter's Fury land. Like, and there's a Neo tank there. We're in Winter's Fury land. This is not ideal in the slightest. I'm taking a lot of damage. Now that the brawling has started in earnest and Winter's Fury is just going to be flying, I don't have, like, I have my 2K here, so I've got these properties, and my opponent doesn't have these properties, but I want 4K, and there's no way I'm getting 4K for a little while. Because all my infantry are going to get brutalized by Winter's Fury, and there's going to be a lot of Winter's Fury flying in the rest of this game. So I'm feeling bad here. I'm feeling bad. This roll hurts. This side folding because of that roll really hurts. It's kind of ugly. It's kind of ugly. And this is something that is kind of important to be able to play from behind like this. And the way that a lot of the times you want to play from behind is you want to flip the table. So, if I play a standard, cautious, conservative game of Advanced Wars by Web, and just try to take low-risk options, I will lose. Because I have taken too much damage. I'm down 30k here. Granted, it's the start of my turn, but I'm not going to be able to do 30k of damage. And I just don't have the income that I need to sustain a large-scale fight against Olaf over the long term without something drastic happening. So we are going to be bad examples, and we are going to go gambling. Now, the Fog high-level meta is largely defined by risk aversion to a certain extent. You don't want to open up too many options for yourself to lose, more than you necessarily are looking to open up options to win off the bat. Because the general thinking is, if you just keep the game going for a little while, if you're a strong enough Fog player, you can find ways to outplay your opponent, and you can win like that. This is sound thinking. However, it doesn't really work when you are playing long game the CO. Like, I cannot play this game without taking risks and win. So first of all, we're going for a bad risk. And it doesn't pay off. This was an outside chance to kill that. It would have been very nice to be able to continue some tactics on this side, but I do not get the roll, unfortunately. And now I'm in a dilemma, because I have gone gambling, and I have lost. I have lost this gamble really, really freaking hard. And I will admit, I did not build a sufficient backup plan for if I lost this gamble, because I was looking to see if I could just do some damage on this spot. Now, what happens if nothing else happens here is I can't break this anti in one hit. This Neo is just going to go over here, go onto the 3-star terrain, say, "Thank you, Mr. Neo," and take a first strike on my Neo, and I lose this corner. My opponent is able to capture this, and it's basically just GG, because I will be down to pretty much even income, will behind pretty heavily in unit damage and value that's been done. And that's just, that's the lose condition for Von Bolt. Von Bolt doesn't have really any way to draw a game back from that lost state. Once the lead slips out of Von Bolt's hands, it's really difficult for him to get it back against Olaf. So, we are going to be not risk-averse, because we cannot be risk-averse here. Because I remember that this Neo tank is here. And, you know, Neo tanks ain't half bad for sacking things for charge. Now, that's not a sack that I would have liked to do, because I've just eaten a pretty hefty loss there. Additionally, I haven't even fully charged Ex Machina. That's a problem, because I'm going to need to take a few more bad-ish engagements in order to really do that. Which I'm able to do. Sack that, just for the extra bit of guaranteed charge. And now we've got Super. Now, there's a few dynamics about Ex Machina that are pretty relevant, and Winter's Fury as well. Winter's Fury is particularly strong because of its interactions with reinforcement. I sometimes refer to it as a discount lightning strike. Because what happens is, when Olaf pops Winter's Fury, he basically gets a line of attacks with full HP plus 10/10 units onto 8 HP units. And the counterattack damage that Olaf takes there is pretty marginal. And then the opponent has a turn where they have a bunch of 8 HP units against Olaf 10/10 units. And it's really difficult to launch an effective counterattack, particularly with the limited movement. And Olaf limiting the movement like that as well creates a situation where you can't really run away. So in practice, Winter's Fury typically ends up as 2 lines of attacks plus global damage, where Olaf will bash into your front with Winter's Fury. You can't really respond during the Winter's Fury turn that effectively, and he'll just bash you again, basically. Sacking for Ex Machina here largely removes the second strike capabilities of Winter's Fury. And that's pretty relevant, because if there is a second line of attacks with Winter's Furies, I'm just dead. It's bad. Additionally, too, raise your hand if your first thought upon calculating as my opponent on this turn, where Von Bolt is quite far away from Super, and you really want to do maximum damage with Winter's Fury, raise your hand if you are doing missile calcs here, as anything except for an afterthought. Because I guarantee you, nobody is. You are looking to do as much damage during Winter's Fury as possible, and pretty much nothing else. So, by popping Ex Machina here, I'm denying my opponent the chance to do an effective Ex Machina Magnet by basically just swinging it on a large proportion of value that is in the front lines. Ex Machina is much better when it's hitting the front lines than when it's hitting the back lines, because you can basically just double turn whatever you hit and kill it with, like, Lightning Strike extremely at home. So that's kind of the dynamics around why I went for. I have to take an awkward anti-air engagement. I'm giving up a lot for this. I had to sack 2 vehicles, take some bad engagements. I'm in a bad sort here. But what this does do, I know there's a Neotank there, and I know that Neotank just got hit by Ex Machina. So that's a really juicy follow-up shot there. And one thing, too, about this map, the vehicles from this base actually don't get slowed down by Winter's Fury, because this is all either 0 movement cost terrain or forests, and forests count as 2 anyways. Forests don't get affected by snow. So I get 1 nice turn of reinforcements, which is also partially why I built the Neo here. Because that's a good way to send in a bunch of value straight towards here without getting slowed down by Winter's Fury. And sending my dudes to heal. I am kind of gambling that my opponent doesn't have anything to capture this, which is risky because I know my opponent has a T-copter in the area. If my opponent flips this, it's pretty much just good night. But we're going to hope that my opponent doesn't have an infantry in position, because if they do, that's a problem, because I can't interrupt that. So, building some additional stuff here. I'm anticipating winning the neophyte on this, so I just am building infantry here and starting to focus sending some dudes over to the right for just more fighting strength. And infantry fighting happens here. Blows up my 2 HP. A lot of things happen that I can't see. But not too much. So, things that happened in this turn that I'm very happy about, or rather things that did not happen, nothing here. No capture there. That is so nice, because that would basically have been a knockout blow. I am not doing too great here. Still behind 20k in unit value. At least in terms of kills to deaths, and I'm not at my income desired amount. But this Ex Machina is going to let me feast. And just, you like, look at that beautiful damage. Beautiful damage. I start this cap here. So I'm on a timer, because there's going to be another Winter's Fury, and I don't really have any other infantry in range right now. I need to start capturing this ASAP. And I want this healed up, because I don't have any other anti in the area. And Olaf is incentivized to build copters, because copters don't have to deal with the obnoxious Von Bolt counterattacks when you shoot at Von Bolt infantry and other units and all that good stuff. Copters take much less counterattack damage. So, kill some dudes here, and position to try to make sure, there's a little boosty with this, which is really nice, position to make sure that I can interrupt something that shows up on my city there. I'm just getting some more vision on the field. I need another recon on this side. This is a very low mountain map, so I need the recons. I need the vision. So in my mind, up here, my guess is my opponent did not expect the Ex Machina. And now I have an unanswered Neo, effectively. Which means I can brawl up here for a moment. My thinking is, I'm ahead on income. In theory, what I would think my opponent did was save up income last turn, build Neo this turn, or will build Neo this turn, and then have like 2 turns before Neo gets to the front, in my mind. So I just want to do as much damage as possible at the time, because The only thing that sucks more than the first Winter Fury is the second Winter Fury. So, my opponent's dropping back here. Dropping back these units. And getting a little frisky up here. This is kind of supporting my thesis that my opponent doesn't have too much up here. Because that's some aggression. Yeah, granted I'm a little overextended, but still, you know. I think that implies that my opponent is strong on this side. Especially because I know that there's a Neo tank that I haven't killed yet. So, first things first, get some tank vision. Take a shot there, take a shot there. This is frisky, but I need to do something. I can't allow Olaf to go unaccosted into the next Winter's Fury, because I barely survived the first one, to be blunt. So I need to gain an advantage now in what I see as a timing opportunity, or a window, like a timing window, in order to just be able to get my income. Let's start this cap here. This is largely just to force infantry to fight me here, because I'd like to deplete Olaf's infantry if I can. And it never hurts to make your opponent run out of infantry, which can happen if they fight into Von Bolt infantry with damaged infantry. And, oh no, we are not allowing that. No, one turn. No. One more turn, and that property gets flipped, and I don't really have a way to stop that. And that is really awkward. So, sneaking this Von Bolt tank on here is really nice, because it's a Von Bolt tank on a city. You're not dislodging that with pretty much anything. And I get a little frisky here, because I want to see what's going on in these woods. This might have been a little bit of a Mang's infantry. See the Neo. I'm dropping back. Playing kind of cautiously here. And just taking a defensive posture on the south, because I'm being aggressive on the north. And I build another Neo as well, because in my mind, most likely counter for my opponent to my Neo is a Neo out of here. So I want to have another Neo ready and flex that income lead. So, first things first, recon comes on in. That's good intel. Tank comes on in. That's aggressive, but, you know, makes sense. Tank comes on in, kills my dude. Sad, but, you know. I know where a lot of vehicles are. I see this artillery, which is really nice. Because I know now that there's a 7 HP artillery in those forests. Infantry is all moving here. Neo tank goes into the fog somewhere. There's that 1 HP APC. Look, 27 fuel. This thing has just been ferrying infantry to the front for who knows how long. Extremely powerful APC. Because it basically got my opponent these properties unaccosted, made it hard for me to take these properties, gave him 5,000 charge, and is now just continually getting infantry around. Just excellent value on this APC. And I can't even kill it here without sacrificing a full HP recon or an 8 HP copter, which is not worth it. But, get this hit there, which is nice. I mean, I'd prefer to just cap the property, but that's now a crippled infantry, which could be worse. I have not that long before the next Winter Fury comes on. So, first things first, we're killing off injured units. I want my unit count. And in my mind, I want to be super aggressive for one more turn. Because I don't think there's something that shows up that can deal with the Neo for one more turn. If I have one more turn, this Neo can start getting online as well. And I'm getting my 4K. That's going through. That's probably going through. Very happy here. I'm keeping my anti-air here as well, because I'm anticipating the possibility of bomber. So, I'm going in on this side. This is super aggressive, but I really want to dislodge this artillery. And I am able to do that. I have my artillery here to cover as well, which is really nice. This Neo tank can go over smack my Neo, but I've got artillery coverage, so it's going to work out fine for me. Additionally, Gotta get through this 4 HP somehow. Which takes an extra unit. So, I've pushed my luck up north, but I'm not feeling too bad about it. I completely misclicked this APC and I meant to put it here. Which actually kind of sucks. That's quite painful. Because that APC should be here, but I misclicked it and I'm sad. So now it can't boost up an infantry. More anti-air. Because my spidey senses tingled a little bit and I figured that there might be a bomb as the thing that could come in and ruin my day. And come in and ruin my day it does. And that's not the worst of it. There goes the cap. There goes that tank. And that tank's also taking damage. That's ugly. I pushed my luck maybe a little bit too hard on that side, and I am getting thoroughly punished. Recon's dead. That is painful there. T-Copter comes into block, which is extra painful. And repositioning this artillery to really put the clamp down on this. So I'm going to have my 4K very briefly, but this is looking bad. And I just took a walloping up there, and Winter's Fury is about to come up. So I would love to overcharge Olaf as much as possible this turn, because all the overcharge damage that I'm able to do does not go into his Winter's Fury. First things first, take the shot at the bomber. That's always happening. Bombers are annoying though because this shot is always going to produce a 1 HP bomber, and now I have to kill the 1 HP bomber, and the 1 HP bomber gets free shots on things until it dies to an anti-air fighter. So I need to dedicate another anti-air hit here to actually finish this darn thing off, and until then it's just going to be flying around, blocking things, doing chip damage. It's not like a 1 HP copter where 1 HP copter shoots something and then immediately dies because it's got sneezed back on. Much, much worse. I gotta send my dude here to heal because Winter's Fury is coming next turn. So I can't be too aggressive with my infantry positioning to cap because there's just nowhere for them to heal and also threaten caps, which is not ideal for me. And this is one thing that makes Olaf stronger too. Infantry are kind of slow. You want to heal them if you have damaged infantry, but they're slow, so they need to get out of position, hop onto a city. If there's no cities particularly close to like the front line of contested properties, it's pretty hard to heal because the infantry need to run all the way back, heal, then run all the way forward, and by that time, Olaf's probably got another Winter Fury. So it's really hard to flip properties because of that. But it's partially because infantry are just slow. But I really, 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 really do not want that. I'm willing to essentially sacrifice a tank. Put my Neo back here to heal. Winter Fury is coming. I'm creating a little bit of a slop wall here as best I can. But this is going to be a little awkward. I should have combined the Neos as well. This is just going to get Winter's Fury here. I could probably just use the extra funds. Low HP tech units are kind of trash because they don't fight anything well. A 2 HP Neo is just kind of garbage. Like, I'd rather just have a tank. It doesn't fight tanks well, it doesn't fight infantry well. Once tech units start taking damage, you need to heal it or else the unit loses its usefulness very quickly. And especially against Olaf, there's like healing up a 2 HP Neo is going to be extremely difficult when Winter's Fury is there. And fly it does. Here's the Winter's Fury. And just starting to bully my units here. I've stopped the cap, but at what cost? So, I've taken a bit of a walloping there. We can open up stats. I'm down 50k! 50k. Now, reasons to be cheerful. I've got my 4k income for now. I'm probably losing this front with what's going on here, and there's an entire Neo as well back in the front, back on that front as well. So the 4k isn't going to be here for long, and it hasn't been here for long to pile up. I've been working with 2k for most of the game, which is nice, but it's not what you want. But I am Von Bolt, and the dynamic of my opponent probably not magneting that much because they want to attack and get maximum value out of the units is in effect. So if I can get super this turn, I can do the same thing of denying that second strike of units. So, send this in, blow up a dude here, blow up a dude here, and I get my Ex Machina. Oh man. I know that there is a Neo tank on this square. And that's now a 7 HP Neo on 0 terrain. I Neo here, ready to counterpunch. So, I'm sensing blood. I need something to happen. Because again, before this turn, I was 50k down. I need something to happen. And I need to absolutely overwhelm my opponent. And I'm behind, so I need to gamble. But 4 tanks here, 1 Neo healing. My opponent has a pretty impressive force coming up. 1 HP bombers, man, that just comes in, does a little chip. If I want to get rid of that damn thing, I've got to sacrifice my full HP anti-air. I don't want to do that. Fighting down south is going bad, but it could be worse. I'm not losing everything here. But my opponent throws together a little bit of a wall there, has this recon show up to start harassing the infantry, which is very rude, very inconsiderate. And I basically lost all vision on this front, which sucks because Neos have very bad vision, and I need to have vision to make good decisions. And I need to make good decisions to have a chance of this. But first things first, I want that Neo. And just look at this beauty. Look at this beauty. So, this tank sees everything. Just absolutely everything. And one, I want to remove that artillery. It's really annoying. It holds down this front so well, and it's just going to keep healing up. And it would take my Neo if I heal them there. And 2, beautiful shot. That's the second Neo I've been able to eat with X, which feels good. Now, granted, both times I've had to sack for Ex Machina. And if you're getting Ex Machina immediately after roll-off Switcher's Fury, you're probably been taking a drubbing, which I have. But that still feels good, killing the Neo like that. Kill the tank over there as well. Get the anti-air on up. I'm feeling alright now. I'm feeling alright. I've hit my income threshold. If I can not lose this side and not lose this side, I'm in a decent spot. I can make stuff happen. So I'm just pulling back over here, being a lot more defensive because I saw 4 tanks. I don't want to deal with 4 tanks. And yeah, so first things first, my opponent is going to start brawling on in here, killing some of the stuff that I've extended. Which makes sense, it's what you do. This guy starts capturing this, which no. I don't want 2k. I don't want 2k. 2k is not enough. I'm a greedy boy, I need my 4k. I need my 4k or I am going to be in big trouble. Especially because I haven't been brawling that American blood. Lose my artillery. Sucks. So I've won the vehicle battle up mostly, but I'm losing the property, which is the loot, which is what I really wanted to do. That sucks. So, my turn here. Same, the Von Bolt Road engagement is so good when it gets the wins. So I'm going in because I really want to deny this one. And I'm throwing this here because it's actually a fairly effective wall. A full HP tank won't typically one-shot an 8 HP Von Bolt infantry, especially because I believe that one was damaged by Winter's Fury, which means that it has a 0% chance, I believe, of one-shotting a Von Bolt 8 HP infantry in Sinister Terrain. The anti-air, which could also be used for wall breaking, is chipped out to 7, and I am banking on the idea of a Neo-Tank existing right there. I just don't want to deal with a Neo-Tank coming in and popping a Neo-Tank, because that would ruin my day. And also give Olaf Winter's Fury, which would also... Go in there, kill that recon, I don't want vision. Going up this side a little bit. And I'm just kind of taking good terrain here. I've given up on these cities for the time being, just because I want to solidify my position before moving out further. And I built a T-Copter last turn, which is going to be really nice in getting some infantry up north. Because I need more infantry presence up north. Like, sure, I could maybe win the vehicle fight with what I've got. I've only got 3 infantry, and it's really trivial for my opponent to just, like, shoot each of those infantry, and all of a sudden, I don't have any property points. So my opponent isn't really on a timer to deal with my stuff. So, goes in. That won't kill. And there's the Neo. Doesn't actually kill my tank, which, thank you, Von Bolt. We rock with the bolt. Goes in here though, starts brutalizing his stuff a little bit. Very rude. Recon spots a front shift of these tanks, which is really nice to me. But now this is getting capped, this is getting capped. And things are front shifting to the south. It's annoying. 1 HP bombers, man. 1 HP bombers. And the worst thing is, I can't kill this tank and this bomber. Because the Neo is where the anti-air needs to go, and the anti-air is where the Neo needs to go. 1 HP bombers are so obnoxious, and it does a little bit of chip damage that I need to pay for now. So, I still want to deny the caps, but I have a new plan, or a new idea. If everything is front shifting down here, there's a decent chance I lose these properties. And that means I'd lose the... Especially because, again, I have not been having the best go with the see stats. It's not too bad right now, but Winter's Fury is about to come online again. And if I lose my income lead, that's really... So, I'm killing up there. This is again trying to force out some units, trying to kill stuff. Low HP, like this 5 HP Neo, this 5 HP Neo is 11,000 U, right? In terms of value. And it's hitting basically like what a tank on this anti. And it's taking a shot back. This is why crippled tech units kind of suck. They just don't hit hard enough to justify their cost. And then they get chips back because they don't hit hard enough to justify their cost. I'm making some aggressive motions up north, but it's Winter's Fury turn. I don't have any credible cap threats because it's Winter's Fury. Like, I can start these caps. But it's not going to go through because Winter's Fury is coming. And unfortunately, we're going to lose this cap. Sucks. Because now we're back to 2k land. Brawling hasn't been going good enough for me to justify 2k land. And Winter's Fury is about to come, so there's that. We are on 2k income ahead of my opponent. And I'm not going to get some more income for a little bit. Neo pops down, shoots that, knows where my Neotanks are because of this whole thing, so is able to make the judgment call that maybe this can be saved. This back up. Because Winter's Fury comes and makes it so that this Neo can no longer attack this Neo. That's painful. That's painful. We're now mid my opponent's turn, down 40k in damage. This Neo shows up, that's a problem. This tank shows up, that's a problem. I'm now fully losing this. That's a problem as well. Losing my infantry. I built the T-Copter, so I'm going to have some more infantry coming on in, but it's not looking good, because you really need infantry for credible threats in this game. And this stupid bastard bomber again. I hate this bomber so much. After taking a really nice shot on a Neo, it then proceeded to run around, walk, be annoying, and get another 2 HP off Neotanks. Really effective bomber. But oh my gosh. I need it dead yesterday. So this right here is a really big and specific game. This Neo shot. I am gambling on two things with this match. One, I don't think my opponent has the best vision on my front. I don't anticipate my opponent would put a recon anywhere like this zone. So I don't think my opponent knows the best intelligence of what I have. Two, I'm betting my opponent doesn't want to give me an X-Mach next turn. Because there are active Neotanks running around. This is all fairly clumped up. It takes a moment to get it unclumped. And it is going to be a little bit difficult to bait missile, I think, with large clumps involving Neotanks. And three, and this is the most specific part of this. Remember when I said that vehicles out of this base don't get slowed down by Winter's Fury for the first turn? This is an aspect of the bluff that will only work against a very good player. Husky is absolutely a very good player. I am bluffing that I built a Neo a turn earlier than what I actually did. Because my bluff, or 1 or 2 turns earlier than what I did. My bluff is that there's a Neo here that's full health, or that was 8 HP, and I have it in the wings somewhere ready to reinforce this Neo. Or I have an artillery here. I'm gambling on my opponent not having the vision to call this move. I am also further gambling that my opponent sees the possibility that the Neo was here this turn, and then it could move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I delete my cruiser, heal it up there, and if my opponent swings on my Neo this turn, not only do I get Von Bolt Scalp, but that whole Von Bolt's road interaction happens where I killed my opponent's Neo for 5 HP. Now, this is a very specific, very, very specific game. And I'm opening myself up to my opponent just smacking my Neo and getting away pretty much scot-free. And that would be a big problem. But I'm recognizing that I'm not going to flip any income for a little while. Olaf's going to be pretty much even on income. Only down 2k right now, which is horrific, and if anyone's likely to get more income right now, it's Olaf, because this city is extremely vulnerable, so I need to make something happen. And it doesn't hurt that I'm eating a tank while I do it. So, all that is to say, this Neo, we are going gambling. We are going gambling 1000%, and I am hoping that this bluff works, because if it doesn't, I'm going to be very sad and going to lose this corner even harder than I did before. And I'm faking like I got more stuff. Like, this anti-air gets super frisky as well. Like, oh man, I've got more stuff on this side. You gotta respect me. Meanwhile, I'm attacking here. These are just kind of good traits. Again, I should have combined these, but live and learn. Recon pops up. I just want to see what's in the vicinity. Chips and infantry. And my Neo's here. I get a little bit of an idea here where... So I'm attacking on both fronts, right? That's the classic thing that you don't do. But I'm hoping that the bluffing is going to make my opponent not able to punish me fully for this overaggression. And two, if I lose on the bottom right front, where I'm a little bit anticipating that I win, or if my opponent shifts a lot of forces there, I have a new idea, which is I cannot win the long game if my opponent flips this. I mean, I basically can't win the long game anyways, because my opponent's down only 2k as well. So, one of the best ways to make income not matter is to rush the HQ, because if you rush the HQ and you get the HQ, then who cares if you're down like 10k income or something. Like, you win the game. And we'll get into this a little bit more as we go through this, but threats in this game do not need to come to fruition to be effective. They just need to be threatened. So, my opponent blasts my anti-air here, but is spooked off here. I was also kind of bluffing that I had another Neo that was healthy here as backup as well. I'm bluffing a lot more tech than I have. Now granted, I have a little bit of artillery for safe measure, but that was also very risky. My opponent backs off on both fronts. I am so happy to see that, because that means that my opponent did not call my bluff on the Neo. The gamble has paid off. I've eaten a tank largely for free, and that's just nice. So, my opponent, I attacked on both fronts, and my opponent backed off on both fronts, which is really, 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 really incredibly nice to see. It means that the gamble paid off, and I was able to make my opponent uncertain enough about where I was strong and where I was weak to back off. So, first things first, I know this is a trap. I know that there's no chance that my opponent doesn't have, like, double tech, but, like, this is just too good value. And if it's Neo tanks, it's a Von Bolt City Neo. It's going to do some numbers to whatever's attacking it. So, too good value not to take. See nothing here. Recon here sees the front shifts through this square, which is really nice. Okay, what do we see? We see full health Neo there, which we knew about. Nothing else really. Kill off some infantry. Combine. Again, 3 HP Neo is not going to do me any solids. I want to get my anti up here, but I'm starting to shift some units up north for this play. Including this Neo tank. Because I am fully anticipating this Neo to get bullied. But for this Neo to get bullied, that needs to be a lot of force coming down south. A lot of force coming down south isn't force that's coming up. And I might be able to swing some income, potentially, or swing the game. So, my opponent comes on in here. If he hits, there's the Neo 1, there's Neo 2. Now, I have taken 7 HP of damage, and I have done back 6. That's why I said this is just such a, like, even though it's a trap, it's such a tempting shot. Like, you just kind of have to. It's just too good value to pass up, really. APC shows up. That freaking Best Buy APC, it got refueled as well. It's been just doing numbers for my opponent. Alright. So, objectives this turn, I've got an Ex Machina. Let's see where it lands. My opponent didn't fully make it. That's really freaking good news. Really, really freaking good news. Because that means I have carte blanche to put a lot of pressure on the HQ. And I kind of need it, because if we look up the stats again, I'm down for like 40k. And I haven't had enough of an income lead for long enough to really offset that. So this is opening up a window of opportunity. And I need to grab it with both hands, and I need to be super aggressive and go gambling. So, first things first, see what I see. Okay, boom, we got tanks there. Really nice to see. That means my opponent's been reinforcing on this side. These two tanks here are indicative of tanks being built off of both these bases to reinforce. See what I see here? Anti-air. I'm so happy. I don't have that much that is really susceptible to anti-air. I haven't been going super copter heavy, so that's fine. So now I'm running over here. I'm just weakening up these infantry because I'm going to lose this out. The way that this plan works out, I'm going to lose this. I'm expecting to lose this out. So I just want to make it as inconvenient as possible to capture things. So let's go and pick off these. And there's no rush to kill this, per se. Now, this is another specific gamble. I'm gambling that my opponent does not have Neo tank here. This turn built to reinforce this Neo. But I want to push my luck with a 2-hit KO on the Neo, if I can. And it's really, really, really powerful to hold the HQ squares, because 60% defense right now. Nothing's touching a Neo with 60% defense. If I have the HQ tile, I mean, Von-Bolt defense makes it very nice to go for HQ counts. Especially when you have lured a bunch of stuff down. The jig is up. My opponent knows that I'm rushing HQ, but what are you gonna do, you know? And I have a few baits here, because I'm capturing this, and my opponent probably isn't getting Winter Sphere this turn. But what I have is this here. I'm preparing to kill whatever shows up to interrupt this cap with both these tanks. Which will be really nice if I can pull it off. And this pivot is paying off really well so far. It's putting a lot of pressure on the HQ area, and threats in Advance Wars don't actually need to come to fruition to have that. As long as I'm threatening the HQ, my opponent has to deal with the threat of the HQ, and I can go, like, nab these properties and just kind of add to the pressure snow. If you're going to threaten, you threaten as much as possible. Should have that. This Neo has done excellent service. Good damage, lots of value, lots of unit count. It can die happy. I'm going super recon heavy down here as well, because I am not looking to win the vehicle fight. I'm just trying to kill off the infantry and call it a day. And say, you've been exerting a lot of power down here. That's going to mean that you've been largely building vehicles here. I believe I killed off the T-Copter at this point. So there isn't like a fresh stream of infantry coming from here, especially if tanks are getting built on there. Tanks that are getting Ex Machina, especially. So, rip my Neo. That tank comes on over, takes the weight. Recons are coming on over. This artillery has the lion's share of options to shoot at. And my opponent combines infantry for this cap, which tells me that they are desperately low on infantry. It's really good information to know. Particularly speaking of good information, I was a little bit wrong on my gamble. This Neo has shown up. I was hoping it would not exist so I could just pick out this Neo. But, one very nice thing about this map, for attacking the HQ move, is that if you take this force tab right here, it's extremely problematic for your opponent to get past that, because this is really hard to get units out of, and this is C-tile, so your opponent needs to loop around there, which is much easier to. But I don't really have enough units for what I want to do with the force tab, per se. So we're just going to pretend to have something in the forest. And my opponent will be none the wiser, because we're just bluffing. Because I'd much rather my recon, after doing some attacks there, I actually choose to kill the APC and shoot the infantry, because the APC is what's going to bring in more infantry. And I think that these are the only 2 infantry for my opponent on the front at this point. So if I just bully these guys, my opponent won't be able to convert anything. And Neo to start fighting back there. I'm putting my recon here, and I'm basically saying, yeah, I might have something in here. You want to check? You want to find out? Because my opponent is not going to ever want to send something to check there, because there's nothing else that unit does, and my opponent desperately needs to use all their units for things that have guaranteed value instead of going gambling into a woods. So I don't even need to have something there to have the benefit of the woods. I can instead force my opponent to run through a 2 HP slop recon if they want to kill my copter while the HQ is under. And in the meantime, I've got my 4K. Because the HQ threat has allowed me to snag up these contested properties. This is going through even after Witch's Fury. This is probably going through as well. I'm all of a sudden looking really good with this aggressive push. And a lot of it stemmed from that tank move where I was just bluffing the Neo tank. Bluffing that I had more. And then all of a sudden, my opponent backs off because they think I have more. And all the stuff that actually exists comes north. And goes to the HQ. Gambling is nice. So, my opponent has Winter's Fury. So, kill. Uses Winter's Fury, necessary. Hits that. Hits my Neo. We got more stuff popping out here. My stuff is dying over here. But my opponent resigns. And the reason for that is very simple. I'm pretty sure I can unblockable or unbreakably wall this. And additionally, even if I can't, there ain't any infantry. So we can turn on the lights here actually, because something that is very notable is, remember all my talk about, oh man, I've got a really bad situation. I don't want to get bullied by Olaf in the long game and lose. I'm actually behind before my opponent's builds on this turn. Like, the unit value is actually not good. Like, the unit count is really nice for me. That's part of what Von Bolt does. But, like, my opponent's going to have... Like, this is after saving. Like, my opponent's going to have a 40k or about a 50% army value. So I did really have to do something. And the pivot paid off in a really nice way. But we can kind of go through and see with full vision this time what kind of happened. So, I'm stealing the build. I'm being an ignorant fellow who doesn't do his own builds. Because the last time I did a build on this map, I lost to base skip day 4 recon. So, we're doing the APC here. My opponent builds APC here. Is able to heavily boost with the APC. Builds T-Copter before building any defensive units. Like, I cannot stress enough, if I had built an early recon, like, it's just Jober. Like, this gets blown up, this gets messed with, like, this is like this is the level of greed that they talk about in the Bible. T-Copter APC against Von Bolt, like, this is my opponent is saying, yeah, you're doing the Alaga build. Yeah. So I'm just gonna grab all my properties before you get online. Indeed, that is more or less what happens. This was nice because in retrospect, if that hadn't gone through, it was never going through. We can kind of scoop ahead a little bit here to right before the first Winter's Fury. I'm actually getting decent with the value here because of those tank trades, but I also had to overextend for that and kind of get bodied with this Winter's Fury. To the point where even after my opponent saved up 8,000, like, this is functionally 130,000. That's not great. It'd be worse, but it's really not great. But after my super, on my turn, my opponent has even value. So, sometimes you just can't play it safe. You can't play it safe. This Bomber, maybe I played it a little bit too aggressively with the Bomber. But there's another benefit as well of playing insane gambles like this every now and then. And that is reputation. You need to make your opponent respect what you can do. That's not just like a player skill thing. You need your opponent to respect the options that you have. And if your opponent knows that you are not somebody who is going to go in for insane bluffs, insane attacks, and the like, they're not going to respect the possibility of that happening. Or at least they're not going to respect it as much as possible. And that also means that you don't get the benefit of your opponent trying to call your bluffs and being wrong and getting punished. So you kind of want to, every now and then, like, in addition to having the super aggressive, like, gambles when you need to flip the table, when you're losing otherwise, there's a benefit in being known as somebody who will just say, okay, bet. Like, we're just going to put the game on the line. We're just going to put the game on the line here, and you have to respect the fact that I'll do it. Now, granted, I would recommend that if you are listening to this and you're not, like, top 20 or so in Fog, I would recommend focusing more on the fundamentals before going into insane bluff mind game zone too heavily, but it's valuable. It's valuable. Yeah. And also, again, like, if we zoom up here, I'm ending this turn 3 days before I win the game. I'm ending the turn bad income for what I need to do, and I'm ending my turn barely 200 ahead on unit. Took a gamble, and it damn well paid off. Now, a few turns later, it's game. So yeah, remember, sometimes you need to be a bad influence. You need to do some stealing by stealing people's openings. You should understand what the opening's doing, and what can happen if you use an overly known opening against somebody who knows what the opening does. You can do some gambling, but you've got to gamble within moderation. You've got to understand what the goal of the gamble is. You can't just throw away your tanks for nothing. You can't just bluff everything non-stop. But you've got to have some basis to make your opponent credibly respect your gamble. And if you want to do some cheating, pick Von Bolt and get 10-10 stats. Because that's basically a cheat code sometimes. So, yeah. Thank you all for tuning in to, this is more of a TV movie length than a full-on feature film, I'd say. But thank you nonetheless for tuning on in for this whole thing, if you made it this far. I will see about making a few more of these. I want to do these for all three modes. I think there's a lot of strategic depth in all three modes, and yeah, I'd like to kind of cover some concepts that I don't think are often talked about as much in the community. So I will be, I don't know when the next one will come up, because I'm a fairly busy fellow in real life. But I'm enjoying making these, and it's a good little hobby. So yeah, that is just about everything I've got for you right now. So I shall see you later, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Peace.